Fortnite is one of the most popular video games of all time, amassing millions of players each and every day. It's been 7 years since Fortnite released, and at this point it seems like it's too big to fail. But at one point, Fortnite was incredibly close to dying. Players were leaving left, right and center, all because of one season. Today we're going to talk about the season that nearly killed Fortnite, and what saved it from this fate. This video will not have my opinions on the season, as they are not relevant for the video. I'm speaking from the perspective of the majority of the player base. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing or using code TheBigCraigd in their Fortnite item shop. It really helps me out. And if you want to join the community, the link to my Discord server is in the description. Now, this story takes place all the way back in Chapter 1, Season X. Season X was the final season in Chapter 1, and it was already off to a bad start as it released with the B.R.U.T.E, also known as the mechs. These two-player vehicles terrorized Fortnite for months. The gunner seat gave the player access to both of the mech's arms. One arm was a giant rapid-fire shotgun which could fire 5 pellets before needing to reload, and the other arm was used for a missile attack which traveled long distances and did major damage to both players and builds. The driver's seat gave players access to the mobility functions of the mech, which had a giant leap similar to that of the Thanos leap. It had a mid-air dash as well as a stomp that could damage any players or builds nearby. The mechs also came with a self-destruct sequence that players could initiate, which would instantly kill any player without any shields that was within the radius of the blast. As you can probably imagine, this thing was incredibly broken. The player base struggled to find a counter against the B.R.U.T E due to how effective they were in every situation. If people wanted to win a game, then it was up to them to either drive a B.R.U.T E or hide and hope that they get destroyed, because you could not win in a one-on-one fight against those things. The B.R.U.T E also encouraged teaming in solos, as they needed 2 players to function to their fullest potential, which meant that if 2 players hopped into the B.R.U.T E, they could go on a huge killing spree. While the general player base was struggling to find counters to these death machines, the B.R.U.T E users actually started coming up with their own strategies to make the B.R.U.T E stronger. They realized that the player in the gunner seat had access to their builds, which meant that they could build defenses around the B.R.U.T E, protecting themselves from attacks when they were not able to fight back. If you got into a fight with a mech, the only way you could really fight against it was with builds. But this situation is about to get a whole lot worse. In the 10.20 update, Fortnite nerfed turbo building. In case you don't know what turbo building is, it's when a player holds down a building button, allowing them to instantly place a build. You can see turbo building be used especially when holding a box or when cranking. Fortnite nerfed this, meaning that players had to wait longer between placements, which meant that holding boxes became a less viable strategy. It also meant that cranking 90s was a lot more inconvenient. It meant that the culture around building would be changed forever, and everything that the player base had learned about building in the 2 years that Fortnite had been out would have to be thrown out of the window. If you don't understand what this actually meant for the Fortnite building scene, then just take a look at this clip.
Oh my god, dude!
After 2 days of community outrage, Fortnite did revert this change. But it's scary to think that in one swift move, they almost killed a large portion of their player base. Some people still don't trust Fortnite after they tried to make these changes, and it definitely soured the season for a lot of people. If people hadn't left because of the B.R.U.T.E, then some people left due to the fact that they nerfed turbo building, and they didn't come back. Throughout the season, Fortnite would make consistent map changes, which would remix POIs on the island to create new ones. For example, Neo Tilted became Tilted Town, a Wild West inspired POI that dropped mainly Wild West themed loot, and you could not build or break builds in this POI, which was a really interesting idea. The majority of the community liked this, but some of the following POI remixes were questionable. Retail Row returned this season, but with the gimmick of zombies spawning at the POI constantly in every match. This ruined Retail Row for a lot of people. There was also Moisty Palms, which was a mix between Moisty Maya and Paradise Palms, which was a great idea, except the gimmick of this POI was that if you crouched, you became a prop. This ruined fights for a lot of people, as they kept accidentally turning into props when trying to crouch. And who could forget the return of Greasy Grove, which had the worst gimmick, where every minute or so in the POI, every single player would be forced to emote for maybe 10 seconds before being allowed to do anything else. This was a funny idea, but it was absolutely terrible in execution. Everyone hated it.
Fucking taco time!
All this combined with the loot pool which was just insanely oversaturated with gimmick items, that the season just became really unfun. People started to leave en masse, and they were tired of the B.R.U.T.E, they were tired of the gimmicks, they were tired of the map, they were tired of the loot pool. So, What did Fortnite do? How did Fortnite recover from this? Let me introduce you to Chapter 2. Chapter 2 came and saved Fortnite and brought back millions of players to the game to check it out. The map was new and fresh, every POI was unique without being too gimmicky, the loot pool was simple once again with basic weapons with 1 or 2 more unique weapons being thrown in there over the course of the season. There was no brutes, there was no taco time, everything was simple. While Chapter 2 did have its own issues later down the line, particularly regarding the length of the first 2 seasons, things did not nearly get as bad as they did in Chapter 1 Season X, the season where Fortnite almost died.